Every writer's dream is to get published. Every writer's dream is to get paid for writing. But how can you turn such a vivid daydream into reality? Or, in other words, why haven't you sold anything yet? Let's find out. But before I give you the final answer to why you haven't sold your screenplay yet, or why you haven't sold any of your writing yet, let's take a step back. Let's look at why we tell stories. The reason is very simple. We want to share. Sharing is storytelling. So what do we share then? We share experiences. So storytelling, in a way, is sharing experiences. That's why some books are really ageless. They do not age because they tell stories that hold true and will forever hold true because the essence of life is in these books. Someone nailed it so good in his or her writing that this book will not age. But it's not only sharing experiences. It's also showing someone how he or she can cope with certain struggles. So writing, in a sense, is also some kind of guidance, some kind of guidelines that you, again, share with the world. Most often, the stories that, grab you the most are these stories that not only, tell the truth about certain struggles, they also show these struggles in a way that we can relate to. So whenever, there is a love story, we most often can relate to a love story because we know how that feels. Everyone on this earth knows how it feels to be in love, or knows the exact opposite, which is also, again, a potential story right there. So sharing is one thing, and the other thing is coping. And that's usually what a story is all about. The ups and downs of trying to manage a struggle. So it's experience and guidance and also perspective. So perspective is the one thing that will bring us closer to why you probably haven't sold your screenplay yet. So the reason why you haven't sold your screenplay yet are probably two things, at least two main things. The number one thing is you're probably not sharing your experiences. Okay, so here's the story. So when I started out writing, I was very much into David Lynch's work. And whatever I, did, whether it was writing or it was filming, all of this, I was always trying to mimic David Lynch's style. And yes, I've gotten better at it. I sort of picked up the crafty things and I found out how he was setting up light. And I also understood how his characters worked and how his storytelling, worked, and all this puzzling and piecing together. So I figured all that out. And I, at least for my taste, I came very close to mimicking him in a way that I felt was almost there. And I was happy with that. For that moment, I was happy with that. So I showed this work to people and they were very upfront about not liking it. The number one feedback I always got was, well, that's Lynch in really bad. And it took me some while to figure out why that was. Why was everyone, giving me hell about what I did? Because I felt I came very close to it. I know this sounds stupid now in retrospect, but at this very early stage in my career, in my writing, it wasn't even career then, but in my writing and filmmaking, I felt, I was right there. I was so close and I didn't get why people weren't following me. Later on, I found out that the reason why they weren't following me was I wasn't showing them anything from my perspective. There was nothing in that made it unique. I was just, a copycat. I was probably a not so bad copycat, but I was still a copycat. So that's number one. The number one reason is if you're not sharing your perspective on things, that you will not find someone who can relate to that, because it's not interesting and it's not relatable. It's just a bad copy of something that already exists. So that brings us to number two. Number two of why you haven't sold your screenplay yet. You're being dishonest, not only with yourself, but with your audience and your reader as well. People will be, really put off by your work because they can sense it. Most often they cannot put a finger to it, but they will sense that you're not being honest. You're not telling the truth about your feelings, about your emotions. And this will translate right onto the page. So for me, having figured that out made a huge difference. So once I put aside all the David Lynch copying, and focused on something that it was really dear to me. Also very painful. Something that really ate at me very deep inside. Also places I didn't want to go. Like I didn't want to really let this out. Once I really did go there, and once I had the courage and the bravery to go there, everything changed for the better. I found out that once I started to be me on the page, unfiltered, people started to connect. And they not only started to connect, they started to really dig it. And the more I added my perspective on the word into that writing, the more people got really psyched about what I was writing. So I started to share my perspective on things. And I started to, share where I was wrong in life and what I did wrong. And I also started to share what I did right. And I also started to share what I like and what I dislike, what I find humorous and what makes me cry. And once I started to share all this, started to share my experience on life, started to share my view on life, my perspective, everything changed. So the reason why you haven't sold your screenplay yet is probably because, one, you're not being honest on the page, and two, you're not sharing your perspective on things to a degree that what's on the page is really you in the most unfiltered way possible. One last word about it. I know it takes a lot of courage. I know it takes a lot of bravery. But I promise you, you either dig deep and go these places, or you will probably not have that much success. But you deserve it. You deserve it. And we want to read your perspective on things. Everyone out there, every one of you out there, I dare you, put down your perspective on life. Share your struggles, share your emotions, as bad and as harmful as they may be. Share them. And I know people will immediately connect to that. Give your perspective on life. Share this in a well-crafted story, and people will freak out about it in the most positive way. Okay, that's it for today. Get back to writing. Make sure you like and subscribe and all this good stuff. Check out my other videos, subscribe to my channel. In the comments down below, share a topic that you want me to cover, and also share the video. Help fellow writers, become the best that they can be. Let's build this great community of writers, of really daring and brave writers. And you can be part of it. See you in the next video. Right on.